It'll be 17 years since the LG Voyager came out. This is a re-unboxing. I bought this phone secondhand. I'll be sharing some of my memories and experience with this phone and really going through the details of the box and the phone itself and just talking about some of the key things that make this phone special to me. This is just a relaxed, very unproduced video. So if you're up to some nostalgia and also want to live the memory of as if you just got this phone for holiday season 2007. All right, guys, you already know from the title what this is, but this is an unboxing of the LG Voyager. And this has always been one of my biggest fantasy phones. I mean, this was, for one, a very expensive phone in 2007. And being the age I was, especially, this was something that was just like totally out of reach, it felt like, to own one. This is the original black LG Voyager. And today I'm very honored and excited to have one to unbox and to share the experience with you guys. Okay, so you can also see I have a Twilight book here. And this phone really reminds me of the Twilight series because the books were really popular and were still being released. And my first memory with this phone of ever seeing it, I believe in person, was a friend had one. This phone came out in November of 2007, by the way. So we're approaching, in a couple of weeks or so, we're approaching it being 17 years old as of the making of this video. But anyways, this girl had one and she was very into Twilight, and her dad had given her this phone because the front display, the touchscreen, had broke. And I remember her having this phone thinking it was amazing because we all still wanted the Voyager back then. But that was kind of my first experience. So this phone very much ties into the Twilight series for me, as well, as a lot of phones from that period as well. The box, first thing, if you're familiar with like other Verizon phones of this time, and maybe slightly before, but they all came in like a VCast box, and they usually didn't have a picture of the phone on the front of the box. So this is pretty cool to see that it does. It's a little bit more unique than, let's say, like the chocolates were and like the original NV. They mostly showed just like a profile of the phone on the side of the box, but typically every box from Verizon just looked the same. So this is pretty cool to see. This may be kind of like the start of them doing this, because I know like the NV2 that would come out in the May following after this phone, that phone, I remember, was featured on the front of the box, and then most phones after that. So this might have been one of the first ones. Something I noticed right away, I'll let you guys hear, and you can see the texture too. I'm assuming it's made out of paper, but it has this like plasticky coating kind of on it. And I'll kind of compare it to this chocolate. You can see that this is more like poster board, like that kind of feeling. And this is like that plasticky like coating. This has that, and I never knew a Verizon phone to have this kind of texture. So that was pretty cool to see the difference there. So we have this. This is a glossy, as you can see. That's also glossy. It is a VCast multimedia phone with touchscreen by LG. On this side, shows some information. Now this is not like unopened, but I do have some of these contents in here. The box is in really great shape. Let's go ahead and turn this over. One thing, too, from me, this also looks like a mouse chewed on it. And I love mice, honestly, so I think that's kind of cute. I don't want a mouse in my house, I'll clarify that, but I don't know. I just will make up a story in my head that this person had a gerbil or a mouse, and it got out of their room one day and decided to chew on their beloved LG Voyager box. On the back, not glossy again. Okay, here's what I wanted to show you. So it says Voyager is a trademark of Plantronics licensed with Verizon. So the story of this is, if you happen to have seen or want to watch my history of the LG Envy series of phones, this phone was obviously called the LG Voyager, and then later on its successor was called the Envy Touch. And I've heard through research that the Envy Touch was supposed to be called the Voyager 2, but because of that licensing name situation, that's I assumingly have heard that's why an LG did not name the successor to this the Voyager 2. It was called the Envy Touch, is because they wanted to avoid that situation again. So it's pretty cool to see that that is identified here, that that name belongs to Plantronics. So that's a little history of this phone. And on the top, we just have like the IMEI number and stuff like that on the top of the box. Opening it up, I just really like the detail of them having like the visual difference and like also textural difference of the little displays of the phone. And this box is very reminiscent of other VCast phones, but it just has some extra details that are pretty cool. And I love just to see which simulated screens they use on these, like of popular things at the time. So we have a quick start guide. We have 2 of them, and one of them is in Spanish, it looks like. Set one of them to the side. Still rocking no tripod again, but you know what? I'm too excited. I haven't fully got to like look at all this yet, because not gonna lie, when I get stuff in the mail and I'm really excited about it, I just feel like I want to experience it for myself first, because it's just not the same trying to like process it and do a video. So this is still a kind of my first look at it, but I did get to enjoy looking at it, you know, before then. This is interesting. This shows like the virtual QWERTY keyboard. And so far from me messing with the Voyager, I have not been able to get the keyboard to show up. It just shows up in like the T9 virtual style, but maybe their web browser allows you to do that, but then texting doesn't. Not sure. And the back of it, let me just get this going. Shows some other functions and features, and then got a little accessories, optional accessories, an extended battery. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people didn't really, at least from my experience, a lot of people didn't really get like those accessories from the Verizon store because they were really expensive. Consumer information about radio frequency emissions. And then we have the VCast Music Essentials CD, so you could load music onto it. The user guide. Tips, hints, and shortcuts. And someone had like a little bookmark to this page. I wonder what they wanted to bookmark. In here we have the Voyager and the charger. So this phone still used LG's proprietary charger. So like the original Envy, the chocolates, they used that. But here's the phone. It's in really beautiful shape. It's not in perfect functional condition, but for me, this is just a total gem to have one that's not all chipped up. And it just looks and feels so nice. I'm just like blown away by this phone. I've always wanted this phone, and now 17 years later, I have one. And it's super cool. Okay, yeah, so 2.5mm headphone jack, SD card slot, charger port, which the little flap thing is no longer attached. We have the volume up and down, a lock switch for the screen, and the camera button. Nothing on top. On the back, we have a 2-megapixel camera with no flash and the removable battery. This phone feels just like it would have back when it was new. I mean, this rubberized texture on phones tends to get sticky and kind of liquefy as it gets older. I've had quite a few older devices from this era that have done that, and they just collect lint and get sticky, and even the color will rub off on your hands. And you can take alcohol and rub it off with like a Q-tip. It's a very long process to do that, but basically it rubs off this coating and just goes down to the plastic. Not so much on the battery, I've noticed, but like on the body of the phone, you could get that to come off. But one thing that really interested me, I always pictured this being chrome, and it is like a chrome finish, but I'll show you here. That compared to like the NV2, you can see this is like a mirrored silvery chrome, whereas this is more of a like almost like a blue tint to it. In person, it's more blue, not like blue, bright blue type of a thing, but like almost like a smoky kind of color, which is very similar to the same that's on this Tor, which I guess in the camera it's kind of showing up more as silvery like the NV2, but you can see here, well, it's got a little bit more of a blue, and that one's more of like a gray, and that one's like silver. But as you can see, the back of this one is maybe a little bit more sticky than the Voyager, because the Voyager's not giving me sticky at all. This one's got a little bit, and you can see how it's collecting things. And then my NV2 here, I did remove that because this was so gummy and sticky that I didn't even want to hold it. But you can see this doesn't get that way, so, and it doesn't come off, but the body of the phone did. So that's interesting. But you can see how that phone used to look. Part of these unboxing experiences is really like memories of when this phone came out and like similar devices at the time. So it's fun to compare and to kind of see the similarities and differences. So let's go ahead and turn this on. You can see this lights up on the outside and the inside. And if you leave it open, the animation will start on the inside. But if you leave it closed, it'll do it out here. Okay, I tried to not talk so you could hear that. So let's go ahead and this one you had to like kind of use pressure for. They don't work if you just touch it. Well, there it did. But it's a resistive touchscreen, so it needs force versus like modern day touchscreens. You don't have to push the screen. Like this one, you actually need to push it. But it's pretty interesting to see for sure. I went through and kind of customized the fonts and stuff because this is like my favorite. Kind of makes it feel more Twilight. You can see the send and end key, the clear key. And then this kind of just like matched the aesthetic of this. This like doesn't do anything. It's where the earpiece is, but I like how similar the phone, it's symmetrical. I really like that. So the front of this, again, Twilight themed, I feel like. This is a default wallpaper, but the Eclipse book came out the same year this phone did, and this like really just looked like the front of that book. And man, this phone just is like the perfect feeling for like all the memories of this time. I just absolutely love it. This was a pretty big deal because this phone was one of the first phones on Verizon with a touchscreen from my memory. I know like the Palm series of phones had like touchscreens like this and everything, but like this phone really felt like Verizon's iPhone, you know? It was being called the iPhone killer and all this kind of stuff, and that was before people really like understood, I think, where these types of phones were going, because just the resistive and capacitive difference of the screens alone between the iPhone and this, like, didn't even put it in the same category. But before people really got into using apps and before smartphones became like actual like tools for the general population and, you know, kind of became what you could call a necessity to survive in modern times, you know, people didn't really know that this would end up being very different than the iPhone. But at the time, this really felt like Verizon's iPhone. So let me go ahead and open this up. So this keypad lights up blue, like this does, and these few buttons don't light up. One of the things where it doesn't function like 100%. I'm just happy to have this phone in good condition. So I did turn the backlight off because it makes a kind of like a light hissing sound, and I think it may be because it's damaged. So I went ahead and turned it off just in case that would be like a safety concern. But as you can see, very nice large keypad. I can go ahead and compare it to the NV2. As you can see, the keys are much bigger, and the size of the Voyager was more reminiscent to the original NV, whereas the NV2 was more compact. Space keys still on the sides, just like the NV2 would eventually do. The spring following this phone coming out would not see centered space keys for a little while longer than next generations. You can see the menu here. You can change the menu from this color to black and white. Now you can see the icons are black and white. There you go. I prefer it in the color because that's like what the box has on the front. And I just think that looks the nicest. And I can go ahead and play some ringtones if you guys would like. Okay, I really liked that one. I liked quite a lot of these. That was pretty surprising because, you know, like a lot of these were reused on different LG phones, at least from my experience. I've heard these before, but there was quite a few I've never heard before, like actually quite a few. So I don't know if some of these were like kind of exclusive to the Voyager or not, or if it was just me never owning every single Verizon phone. to know that, but I really liked some of those, and some of them that were on my NV2 were on here, and that just brings back so many memories. I hope you guys liked hearing those. I'm also surprised, you know, that this battery is still on. A lot of phones I have, if I do not have it constantly plugged in, the battery won't last at all. And I've been messing with this over the past couple of days, and yeah, or I should say the past day, and turning it on and off, and still got a bar, so it's pretty good. Overall, this phone is just, I just love it so much. Phones just don't, they just don't give me the same feeling anymore. And I don't know, like, part of it could just be like the fun of, you know, phones were just like really becoming very diverse and popular back then. But also, I just feel like it was just such a prime era of design. There was so much possibility, and there still is, though. You know, there's a few phones now that still get me excited, for sure. Like, especially, like, foldables. The only phone that really gives me, like, a really excited feeling is, like, the Samsung Z Flip and stuff like that. But let's go ahead and turn off so we can get the animation and sound. I plan on cleaning this up a little bit, but I was just so excited to make this that I just really wanted to show the experience of unboxing this phone and reliving the dream of getting this phone in its prime 2007 era. In classic fashion, I always have one more thing to say. I'd end up skipping one of the ringtones in the process of trying to swipe through the menu. So let's go ahead and play that ringtone, because if it's someone's favorite, I can't skip it. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me along in this. This to me just feels like kind of like preserving history a little bit. And I just really love to do these. Like, I love it. Like, looking back on old phones, I can never get enough of it. And it's just so much fun. So until next time, I will see you. Please consider liking this video and subscribing. I would love to make it to my 1,000 subscriber goal. I'm always kind of close to it, and then I don't post for a while, and that's what happens. But I do have a very exciting video coming up. I have another phone I'm going to be doing. It launched the same month as this one. It's also LG, and it's also on Verizon. So if you know your phones, you can probably guess what that phone is. And I got it in the color pink. So that one's going to be super special. Look forward to that. Leave a comment if you remember this phone, if you love this phone still. And I would love to hear any stories you have about the LG Voyager. So I will see you guys in the next one.